Hey, this is Hauser. I'm your host. My name is Mike Halberstam. Uh, Broadcasting in River West through the internet and simultaneously out of a speaker above a doorway. You might ask, what's it like to be a speaker above a doorway? Well, it gets a little drafty, I can tell you that. Um, I just had a false start. I'm actually starting Hauser 7 minutes later than I usually do. I just had a false start because, excuse me, I just had to wipe my face uh, with my shirt and thereby lifting up to expose my very soft, sweaty undersides. Very, very sloth like in their antithesis of all that is sinewy. Um, so, yeah, I don't know. This week my analyst has been out of town, and we talked a lot about how I'm jealous of her taking a vacation. I have a lot of jealousy and hatred in general. I just there's a lot of music that I don't like. Um, I don't like Iron and Wine. I don't like. Wow, the Wisconsin accent was really thick there. Don't be self-conscious about that, Mike. I don't like Iron and Wine. I don't like Bon Iver, but I've kind of thought about it, and it's partly aesthetic, but it's also partly just because I have an image of in my head of um, Iron and Wine's girlfriend. I mean, isn't that stupid? Shouldn't we judge people not by how many albums they've released on Matador Records, but by their appearance? I mean, by not by their appearance, but by what's inside. I'm sure Iron and Wine's a pretty nice guy, and he would probably like give me a ride home from Pick and Save if he saw me and knew me. He would probably have seen me several times at like Foundation, and I will have made an effort to be nice to him. But I'm just very uncomfortable around people, which is kind of the theme of this program. Um, just making sure the red slider thing is up there, so I don't have to start this over again. And I mean, he would probably think that I'm like one of those people that doesn't like him, and I I I don't know. Um, I want to open up to people. I want to rent movies with people and uh, discuss artisanal sausage making with people and all that kind of stuff. Talk about which Tortoise album is good. I don't know who. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I thought this would be like. The show would be like Fire Sign Theater. I realized something that the false start. Here's something that I've realized about myself, um, Dr. Barber. I mean, internet. Um, I've realized about myself in the past week because I had this thing happen to me where I was supposed to do a reading in Madison, Wisconsin, um, for a reading series that's organized by two terrific fellows, Louis Friedman and Andy Grisevich, um, and takes place in the apartment where a person named Anna Vitale lives. I don't know. I was really looking forward to hanging out with these people, but I thought the reading was on Thursday, and it turned out to be on Wednesday. And I check Facebook as I'm wont to do at times when I'm not checking Facebook. I'm, I'm a Facebookaholic, people. Addicted to Facebookahol. That's a Simpsons ripoff. But anyway, so I was like, oh, crap. I'm supposed to do this reading today, and I'm supposed to work today. And so I changed my mind about twice in the span of like 3 hours. I called in twice, and then and I called Lewis to sort of coordinate initially. I bought a Greyhound ticket. I finally, at around 2 o'clock, I called the scheduling person at my job at the CIA, and I asked, okay, can I come in and work at 2:45? And it felt right to cancel my appearance at this poetry reading. It felt right. But I think I've discovered something about myself, is that I have to, the going back and forth, the I'm a vacillator is what I'm trying to say. I'm a vacillator. And maybe that's like how I thrive. Maybe I just need to vacillate a lot and repeat the same motion over and over again. So I don't know. Here's my second attempt to read my prepared statement for tonight. Hey guys, what's up? I'm not sure why you should have any interest in my addressing you this way. I'm going to write about my life. I'm not sure why it would be of any interest to you. Maybe you will recognize something? I'm not sure if you will or not. Maybe through some roundabout fumbling through my rhetorical paces, I will say something funny. It will make you laugh. You will be laughing hard and you will knock something over. Maybe this is precisely the point at which to begin, where you are laughing and you knock over a Snapple. I like to capitalize brand names. You can't see it, but you can trust that I do. I like how they give my text a spritz of iconography, how they scatter recognizable signs around in it, and how I start to get kind of hot, but don't stop. Don't stop in the rock of the coinage, in the debtor's seal of common use. I nuzzle you this way and that. But in this way I nuzzle you. I bring you a drink, and you are a little happier. I hope you are refreshed, and your teeth will not feel too chalky, because then I will have to apologize, and I will kind of hate you a little in that moment. But then there will be another moment. There always is. And it will be a moment in which I love you so dear. So dear to me that I want to cry out with anger. That ampersand, man. It's like the worst reaching presaged by the limitations of that age which we don't ever leave and are surrounded by an absence of loving feeling, not so complicatedly yearning, but just in the way we are with no arms, or might as well be, just as well then to recover Recover this loud feeling of boring amounts of head. It's going to be all head. I don't stop when you want me to, but I do scatter. And in this, I'm coy. I can't see myself. Myself is the entire thigh of a mother. Its largesse is strategic, yet voided by history. I say history, but I'm not sure what that means. Maybe it should be aimed at the store of pain, disapproving, a complete skepticism, a negative reminder. I find that you are faulted too much by your own misgivings. You are too beautiful to be faulted. I find that you are lying through your teeth in a field of grass so tall its largesse is busy in forms of theology and the taut psychologized minces of plebeian hark. It is something I will call a hark spider. I need to look that up, that word hark. It seems important. There were some topics I wanted to find the time to discuss with you, like Olympian sex. Have you heard about Olympian sex? Have you heard how the Olympian village is like just this wonderland of the most physically gifted people in the world having the most amazing sex ever? I'm overwhelmed by it. This is an overwhelm similar to how I am overwhelmed during summer. Somewhere out there, there are people who are on boats, dancing, looking great, drinking carefully selected microbrewed beverages, and some meats from Sendik's. Cheese, crackers, coolers, thongs, water lapping, crackers, water. I know that I want to know you. I do. I wish I could know you, psychically, telepathically, but no, I have to sit next to you. Do you know just how hard it is to sit next to you? I'm beset here by some feeling like Billy Joel being digested by a carpet in the video for the song Pressure. Icons of pressure misplace us in this moral hazard of losing all moral ground, a complexion like moral fault lines addressing Google Earth, pleading with Google Earth. I may go back later and change to a fault line. I meant to say an icon, but you see, that's the thing. I know maybe you're not following me, but I pledge fidelity to these icons in my life in order to then be unfaithful to them. It's actually a form of initiating infidelity to the people on the boat, the waves, the thin crackers, thin mints. A white pillow falling onto a magazine. The magazine is kitsch. The ampersands again. It's like, take a breath, wonder about the universe, make pliable supplications, and so on and so forth. I have this strong desire to be sexy, and yes, to be on a boat. Skin on a boat, like a boss or some skin on a boat. Stop for a second and think how fraught the relation through history of boats and skin is. I was toying with an image before of people pleading with Google Earth, us reflected in Google Earth. Did you know that drone planes are being manufactured, and though still small numbers in small, there aren't a lot of them in this country. Here in America, America is an ugly icon, but they're being used to arrest people. Okay, start over. It's not as though drone planes aren't used to assassinate people overseas away from us. We think tainted in the sorry reflection where blind spots cow us to laughter and impulse buying chili cheese life insurance. This could be the most self-conscious writing ever. Well, it's actually revealing nothing. Some skin on a boat like a boss, like it owns the earth, like PWNS, the Google Earth. A swift takedown and reprisal of somebody who is just wrong, coordinated in phenomenal bliss opposed to one's linking. I mean, you know, one's linking is nothing if not the logical end of a long, long ass paradigm of moral hazard and fissured common space. I could go back, sit next to you. I'm seeing the low battery icon. Something in an icon is pleading. Something in it melts your fence. However, you could coordinate will. However, you coordinate your purpose in forcing yourself to enjoy as an injunction against waste of precious life, this time on a boat with the waves and the newly revealing dress, flattering couture, whatever that means, lakefront beer and prosciutto that is so smooth. It reminds you of raw salmon and pickled ginger. But it's pork. Food that offers a sensation of many other foods, food that is evocative. Food's not very often evocative. It's evocative when it's good. This is located somewhere near lust, somewhere near where giant icons which invite infinite research glimmer like the light off a really nice, I don't know, I give up, diamond. Like Thurston Moore bending guitar against amp and producing a sound that's like Thelma and Louise clasping hands, while Harvey Keitel, stupid man, is left to wonder. But it's stupid to do what they did too. Granted, a more symbolically rich stupidity than trying to get Thelma and Louise to turn themselves over to the cops, more like a nullified redemption or a negativity that becomes crystal clear. It's a much more symbolically rich stupidity to be Thelma and Louise than it is to be Harvey Keitel. It's much more stupid to be George Bush than it is to be Harvey Keitel. And the person who manipulates Bush and so on, and this continuum is such BS, I think we should go whole hog into another country just to get it out of our system. Okay, I don't mean that. I don't want to hurt people. I just am want to. I'm driven to fantasize and suck on an image of you on fire and then be policed and under order. Here's a little coda. Countless bangs, boat trips, sexy inflations overlapping, theoretical bundles in my sundress. I consult the meter. My hairline I notate like a ledger of horrified predictions. A giant shrooming cheese representing the universe, rapidly transforming matter. New representations of boat parties spawning new anxiety. Do you guys know what it really looks like when a hole expands in space? Oh, I am so afraid of aliens slipping into my butthole. I master this infidelity as a defense. I look for references to Kim and Kanye on the web. I go to television for its warmth. It's artificial and it must be harmless. Its invulnerable rapidity. There are more invulnerable rapidities, but television articulates this well enough. Television, you see, makes my butthole invulnerable. Maybe I should let someone play with my butthole if they would like to. The prostate is definitely a site of pleasure. Sites of pleasure are often felt before being heard or seen, often kenned like the childlike feeling of entering a Millennium Falcon-like supermarket in the Midwest on crack. No, JK, I'm not on crack. Kim and Kanye. I wrote this poem. I was really excited about it. It was a poem formed by copying and cutting and pasting from Google searches of Kim and Kanye and Kim Ye, and it developed this like really cool theme of like Kim and Kanye. They went zip lining with Joe Francis, founder of Girls Gone Wild. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This Kanye keeps pretty shabby company sometimes. But it developed this kind of great motif of Kim and Kanye ziplining all throughout the world. And but I totally lost it because my computer's acting weird and it was on a Word document. And I didn't save it and I totally lost it. And yeah, that sucked. My laptop's on the friggity fritz, as we used to say in 1999. Did they have laptops then? I don't really even know. This is an appropriated work. This is from a favorite childhood book of mine. This is called The Monster at the End of This Book. It's simply a transcription. Hello, everybody. This is a very dull page. What is on the next page? What did that say? What? On the first page, what did that say? Did that say there will be a monster at the end of this book? It did? Oh, I am so scared of monsters. Shh. Listen, I have an idea. If you do not turn any pages, we will never get to the end of this book. And that is good, because there is a monster at the end of this book. So please do not turn the page. You turned the page. Maybe you do not understand. You see, turning pages will bring us to the end of this book. And there is a monster at the end of this book. But this will stop you from turning pages. See? I am tying the pages together so you cannot. You turned another page. You do not know what you are doing to me. Now stop turning the pages. There. I am nailing this page to the next one so that you will not be able to turn it and we will not get any closer to the monster at the end of this book. Bonk, bam, bing, clonk, bonk, bing. All right, all right, all right. Do you know that every time you turn another page, you not only get us closer to the monster at the end of this book, but you make a terrible mess? This will stop you from turning pages. A heavy, thick, solid, strong brick wall. I would just like to see you try to turn this page. Do you know you are very strong? The next page is the end of this book, and there is a monster at the end of this book. Oh, I am so scared. Please do not turn another page. Please, please, please. Well, look at that. This is the end of the book. And the only one here is me. I, lovable, furry, old am the monster at the end of this book. And you were so scared. The end. I told you and told you there was nothing to be afraid of. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Kim and Kanye coming to a city near you. I was listening to as in Paris. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. By Jay-Z and Ye. I can call him that. I can call him Hova and Ye. That sounds so unconvincing when I say that. But the like breakdown at the part, it kind of, I don't know. Does it ever bring you to tears? It's like the ultimate like rising to power or overcoming your oppressor. I don't know. It's an incredibly emotional song. I mean, just man. And Kanye is just. I mean, he's a horrible big baby, but he's such a genius. And when you hear his music, you love him so much and you sympathize with him so much. And I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship with celebrity culture. I mean, I'm jealous. I don't know if I'm jealous of Kanye. I don't know if it would work out between me and Kim Kardashian, but I'm jealous. I'm motivated in a lot of the music that I don't like by jealousy. I hate indie rock. Actually, no, I don't. I love Guided by Voices and Modest Mouse and all that crap, all that good stuff. I mean, that music means a lot to me, but I'm motivated by jealousy and hatred and anger much of the time. Sometimes I like stop and think in the middle of a train of thought, and it's like I have like the inner monologue of like a supervillain. It's like, Jesus Christ, man. Anyway, my analyst is out of town. Kim and Kanye. Kim Ye. I'm going to read from this piece that I appropriated from a Time magazine a little while ago. Actually, like in 2009. So it's interesting, the parts that sound dated. The law of the jungle is brutal but not particularly sad. And of course, I meant it. The law of the jungle is brutal but not particularly sad. And yes, I'm worried that Obama is deferring a bit too much to the snails and toads. The law of the jungle is brutal but not particularly sad. I realized that I wasn't helping other people. The law of the jungle is brutal but not particularly sad. You can't necessarily bend Tinseltown to your will. The law of the jungle is brutal but not particularly sad. Politically, it rejects secularization and westernization, but craves changes compatible with modern global trends. The law of the jungle is brutal but not particularly sad. He often speaks informally from a couch. The law of the jungle is brutal but not particularly sad. As the Hadith, the actions are based on the actions and traditions of the Prophet Muhammad. The law of the jungle is brutal but not particularly sad. They're saying, there's a plague on your houses. The law of the jungle is brutal but not particularly sad. Obama is likely to face skepticism even among those who welcomed his election. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Al-Mutawi recounted a conversation with his father about his newborn son. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Jules School District in Anderson County decided to do even more. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. These arguments miss the point. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Teenagers have had less sex than previous generations had. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. It doesn't limit teachers to abstinence-only lessons. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Jordan has become a constant presence in the lives of her young charges. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. They're also looking for more than just accurate information about birth control. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Schools have been so pleased that they've talked about adding a sex education requirement in 11th grade. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Here are the facts. Here are the pros and cons. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Taking sex education seriously isn't easy. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. But we can't afford to keep failing our children. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Jewel runs the 400 meter on the track team and is on the cheerleading squad. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. There is flattery. There is shameless flattery. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. A business newswire recently valued the site at more than $90 million. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. In terms of traditional newspaper content, that's about the level of a small-town daily. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. The walls of the living room are adorned with paintings by Francois Gillot. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. She launched herself in the U.S. on the back of a book about Maria Callas. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. She was pilloried for her connection to John Roger and the movement of spiritual awareness, which some claim is a cult. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Media moguls, take note. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. There was no excuse, and we corrected it. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. We drive millions of page views to people who produce content. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. When its outlets are blocked, it sometimes seems to settle on the nearest object. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. It's best to get out of the road or jump in for a ride. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. This is trade that works well for Anglicia and many like him. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. They can't pay the rent with volunteer hours. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. The good news is that volunteers are stepping forward as never before. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. But food banks still need supplies. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. That's a tough combo. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. If only the Kindle 2 were cheaper. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. It's not as bad as you think. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Two magazine editors in sharply tailored jackets had to pivot awkwardly. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Try to give shaky consumers some reassurance and, they hope, a reason to shop. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. The jacket just might provide a boost. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Retailers, too, could use a little lift. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Suddenly, The doomed Titanic fills the screen. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Live sports and rock concerts in 3D have been showing up at digital theaters. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. He flew over a computer-generated 3D image of the White House war room. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Digital 3D is a different animal from the analog stuff. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. It was cumbersome to produce, too. The law of the jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. The new system uses polarization rather than color coding. The law of the jungle is brutal rather than particularly sad. People will buy their own movie glasses. The law of the jungle is brutal, not particularly sad. Allow me to mark this place. So how are you doing, guys? I don't have anything else prepared. I'm marking my place in that piece that I was reading because I might come back to it, but I also might not. God, it's so friggin' hot. I feel like a squid. I just feel like a nervous squid gulping Aquafina to save its life. Have you been watching the Olympics? How are they doing? How do you feel when you watch the Olympics? Do you think Michael Phelps is an articulate young man? Have you heard about this thing, Olympian sex? It sounds great, and I know this might make you uncomfortable, but I think some vanishing quota at the edge of the collectively fulminating fantasy that is Olympian sex could, I think, really drive a campaign to help us to sort of understand what the parameters of this kind of sort of internationalized promiscuity and it's sort of a fair trade 69 between two very physically fit people. Imagine two very physically fit people who shave their armpits very what's the word I'm looking for? Concisely, brutally concisely, which is sort of the new style of making war for our country, very brutally and concisely. But I'm going to try to concentrate on Olympian sex, and I know you guys wanted to talk about brutally concise war, but that's just so. I mean, it is sexy, but it just relies so heavily on like the power of suggestion, and I find that I've been so desensitized by just streaming hours of Olympian sex and just like sitting there in a kiddie pool of my own flop sex. I mean, okay, we'll stay with flop sex. I meant to say flop sweat, but just scrolling down absent-mindedly through endless hours of Olympian sex, and I guess the reason I'm sharing this with you guys is because you invited me here tonight and you told me there would be potato salad, and there is no potato salad. And I really do find that a little disconcerting. I don't like being promised potato salad and not being given potato salad. I just think you should have kept your word on that. I mean, it's okay if you don't know how to make potato salad. I mean, you can buy it from the store. It's very easy to get and to make. I mean, if you want to make it, if you want to be like a purist or whatever, or if you want to use only locally sourced ingredients, it's very easy to just look up a recipe online. Just look up a recipe online. So I would like you guys, whenever, like whoever's listening, to just drop by sometime. And I mean, you could drop by right now if you wanted to, but just really any time here in the window display. And give me some tips about online dating, because I'm kind of new to the game, and I I grant you that my my expectations are probably very heavily affected by hours of streaming and scrolling through Olympian sex videos produced at the Olympian Village, of combinations of two triathletes and three swimmers and seven basketball players and six badminton players, or one long distance runner and five boxers, and the entire German swim team, and one best boy from North Korea. Best boy being the event of the closely related to being a gaff or a boom mic operator on a film set, or say just a crap load of lasagna and the entire infield of the American baseball team. Just getting famil, just getting famil with that lasagna. Just getting famil. You get famil, and then you take a shower. I hope the like gaps and silences don't sound like, or aren't interpreted, though I can't control it, but they might seem to be punchlines. But what I'm actually thinking is, I hope I don't get dehydrated, because I'm just flop sweating it up. I'm like sweating more than the mixing engineer on Prince's album 1999, which I don't have to tell you is a hot one. So, I mean, we certainly have some time to kill before I have to leave this studio and Olympian sex really kicks in. I would like to address something, which is that I realize that a sign of maturity is often that you feel particularly sad about particular things, and at other times find yourself particularly wowed by a pretty woman, and still other times find yourself particularly saddened by a particularly stricken world, and you begin to voice your opinion in a particularly declamatory sort of way. This is not necessarily psychological. Lately, many in the Soviet avant-garde, no, scratch that. It's just a silhouette. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. You can recognize them by their seriousness of purpose. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Sudanese warlords laugh at American gangster rappers. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Max is an intellectual and a loner. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. I feel comfortable quoting. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. This book is not for the squeamish. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. There is the book's ludicrous, unnecessary length. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. But carrying it out tears them to pieces. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. She blasts away enthusiastically on bouncy cuts. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Live out the autumn of their long, grand love affair. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Writers and actors sling hors d'oeuvres while hoping for a showbiz break. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. He'd feel a little better. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Take that, deep bow. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. The scoundrels must beg forgiveness. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. It might appease our restless animal spirits. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Chimpanzees apologize, or at least perform reconciliation protocols. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. We corrupted the culture of contrition. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. We've learned to peel them apart. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. And so apologies are drained of their healing powers. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. He's big enough to admit mistakes. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. For we are in a race against chaos. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. It's easy enough for them to hide in the complexity of a system few of us understand. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. An apology is just a start. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. Express regret when things go badly. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. An apology is that rare instrument that restores strength. The Law of the Jungle is brutal, but not particularly sad. So I think I'm kind of on the verge, on the cusp, kind of sort of, let me just, for emphasis, of wrapping up this show. I don't know if I can make it much longer. I'm seriously so hot. I'm starting to get a headache. Starting to get a heat headache. I want to go for a dip in the lake. In fact, I'm yearning to. But I think I'm just going to go meet up with friends for drinks. But yeah, thongs, crackers, Kim and Kanye, Kimye, some skin on a boat like a boss. I mean, I hope the episode was like thematically interesting. Anyway, and I hope you'll join me next week. I'm being really lazy about booking guests. I just never. Should I promise to have a guest for next week? No, I'm not going to promise to have a guest for next week because I might just get really wrapped up in season 4 of something. I don't know. Very interested in the idea of inner strength. It almost sounds like a cliche, but I think one needs to have inner strength. And, but it's no different than anything else that one regards in a sort of as being part of the makeup of their constitution. It involves taking things into your body and your brain and crapping things out. All right, I'll be here next week, and I hope you will too. All right, good night.